history of the past, but also has some history of now. And it's relative in so many ways because we have so many sisters and brothers who haven't gotten justice coming through the corridor of what has been very racist and unfair in this nation to many people of color and we might as well say it, people who are not of color too, as we're seeing. Well, with that said, I'm going to start with oh, wait a minute. The crew is all here too. I'm kind of new. I've been away. I've been in Nashville. Hey, Austin, Denver. So I'm going to let them hit the mic. And yeah, it's after the holidays. We back, all of us.
Well, just want to tell everyone, thank you for allowing us to be on the Jim Anderson show. We didn't take a vacation yet, but Jim Anderson is always on the road doing great things. We're just going to get into the scheme of what's happening in the community. I'm part of the shake-up team for the Jim Anderson show, and so my name is Murray Holloman. We'll go to the man with the bush, and then he rocking it today.
Good morning, Buffalo. Good morning, Buffalo. It's great to be back. Y'all left me last week, man, by myself. I was in the talking to myself, but I did. I always got a great listening audience to always help me get through it. So I appreciate you guys for listening, always being valuable listeners, consistent listeners to the Jim Anderson show. It's a pleasure to co-host, a pleasure to have great guests today. Have a returning guest, James. I've had a lot of experience with you over the years, over the years, I guess you could say. And we got a great idea in here. We had the same idea today. So I'm excited to be here. We're going to go ahead and get into the interview.
All right. Well, like I said, I'm going to have the guests speak to themselves. But as the rest of the crew here was speaking, I was thinking, I might have to change this to generations. Because look, we got 3 generations here. And, look, you heard us, but, the other major piece of the show is, I don't know, what do they call that? A videographer? Producer? What do they call that you do, Latasha?
Oh, I'm just live streaming. That's all.
Oh, well, she showed me. She make us look good, She make us look famous, y'all. So y'all keep watching. If you don't guess on here, what they call you get them hits, you gonna get them hits. But that's all you need to know so far. Oh no, one more thing. And then we go to the guests. I'm gonna get this off my chest real quick. Legislature Howard Johnson. I've left the slot open for you to come on next week. People all over the community have been saying they want to hear what you want to talk to them about the why and what we should expect and everything. So I'll hit you up after the show.
So he was actually scheduled to come on next week before this.
All right.
This announcement.
All right.
I think we already have him scheduled. Right?
All right. We got him on it. On the 15th, we got him.
Yeah, so now hopefully he commits to his word and come on to the show and talk, because way before the announcement came out, but he was already committed to come on to the Jim Anderson show. And so now we probably will get a real good exclusive on that piece there. And so that's the shakeup. Yeah.
Now we're going to get a call in, another part of the team of guests that we have in here. And when we do get that call, we'll bring them in. So now I really am going to hand it over to you, James Coughlin, who to not only give us the backdrop. And I just want to say, for some they weren't alive, but for me, I was alive. So and here and know the impact and the legacy of the people involved. So with that said, let me give the mic to you.
Well, thank you, Jim, and thank you all for having me on again. Just with some of the historical background of what we're talking about today, Miss Geraldine Pointer, who's over here to my right and will be speaking more at length later, as well as Martin Sostre, owned and worked at a couple bookstores on the east side in the 60s, the Afro-Asian bookshop. And These were stores where you could get a lot of books on like Black history, Black culture, Black literature that really weren't available and accessible to the broader public, and it was a safe haven, a safe space for a lot of folks within the community, but also within the growing Black Power and the Civil Rights movement in the 60s, as well as the anti-Vietnam War movement, as well amongst UB students. They also sold jazz records as well. And in June 27, 1967, Buffalo had an uprising preceded more well-known events in Newark and Detroit in the long hot summer of 67. Started around Sycamore and Gray Street, and was really a mass protest amongst Black Buffalonians against housing discrimination, joblessness, a lot of the prejudice and the kind of systemic racism that had been brought to Buffalo as more African Americans, Black folk were migrating from South to Buffalo and didn't really find justice or certain differences from the Jim Crow South. And then a couple weeks during that uprising, a lot of folks would come to these bookstores as a sort of safe space, as a way to escape police brutality, and also as a way to be educated and learn about the past, the culture, literature. And a couple weeks later, well, I should say during the duration of those couple weeks, Martin received a visit from the FBI. In the building across the street, there was an informant that had been viewing and peeking into the bookshop on Jefferson and Woodlawn. And eventually on July 15th, 67, a couple weeks later, Martin and Geraldine were framed, wrongfully arrested, convicted by an all-white jury the following year. Martin was incarcerated for 9 years, Miss Geraldine for 2 years, but their records are still stand. And so we are announcing a petition to the Erie County DA to exonerate the records, and also, most importantly, to ensure that Miss Geraldine has a rightful place in history, is given the respect and the love and admiration that she deserves amongst Buffalo and the broader Western New York community.
Cool. And I just want to say for listeners, we're talking about back in the day when we're talking about the early birthdays of Black Power movement. We moved from civil rights moving into Black Power, and the way that it was expressed with dignity, with no fear. And so we have Geraldine, and we have another gentleman here too, her relative, and they're both her son.
Yes.
Oh wow! So we're gonna have you introduce yourselves, and then tell them, you can come to us any way you like about the story, and things that you have it your way, and do it. And I do want the son to say at some point, say something.
I'll start out and say, I want to thank you for letting me be here to tell my story. And I brought this is my son right here, Terrence Pointer. He went through a lot after I got arrested. My children were put in foster homes, and even my daughters stayed with my mother, and she wasn't the nicest person to my children. My son told me this was not that long ago. The movie Flowers in the Attic. I don't know if anybody ever seen this movie. That reminded them of when they stayed with my mother, because they suffered. They had to stay up in the hot attic in the summertime.
Wow. Yes.
And all the other children that lived in the house was outside playing.
Like punishment.
Yeah.
Wow. Sorry
And
to hear
they
that.
suffered just like I suffered. Things that I went through even when I was in jail. It was unbelievable that a human would have to go through things in a woman's prison.
Right. Before you got there, tell us something about the time around when the arrests happened, what life was like for you then, and what the culture was like, that drove you towards your worldview?
Well, you know what? I worked in the bookstore. Martin had two bookstores. He worked in the one that was on Jefferson. It was 1412 Jefferson.
Yeah.
And I worked in the one that was on Orange Street. And it wasn't that bad then before everything started to happen, because we helped the community. We had books about Black history. We had art. We had African carvings that sold really well. And it wasn't, how can I say, it wasn't.
So here it is. You had two bookstores. So you actually was entrepreneurship. Then two bookstores, one on the west side, or
No,
both
on the east
both on the east side.
Yeah, one in Fruita.
During the time period when the FBI was more or less looking at folks like Jim Anderson and yourself as be revolutionaries, or was that the case? Because you said there was surveillance during this time period, so something had to spark them to be there during the time period. Now, I was I was born in 1964, so I'm just saying it. But some of the stuff that during your time period, Mr. Anderson, and yourself, ma'am, the FBI was checking on everything that you were doing. So was it because of the books or the knowledge that you was giving up? That's why they was in,
Exactly.
So explain that to us a little bit.
Yeah, before you go there, boy, this is right on time, because I think the call we have is someone who is quite familiar about how the FBI does. So we're gonna go to the phones, and Leslie, if that's you, that's who I'm thinking of. You're on. Leslie, you're on.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Hey, glad to have you. We were just talking about in those back in the early 60s, middle 60s, that in relationship with talking with Geraldine when she was younger then, how the FBI was kind of down, just really looking in on organizations, because that was like the early start of the Black Power movement, moving out of civil rights era. And when we mentioned FBI, I was just saying, yeah, you got some familiarity about how they proceed to just track you and make up something. But anyway, you're on, and I'll give you the mic.
Okay, hello. I do have some familiarity with that. I would say from the East-West bookshop situation, it was the only place in Buffalo where you could really get literature about Black liberation struggles, even anti-war movement stuff at the time. And Martin had come out of prison and had opened this bookshop, and then there was the uprising there that summer, and all that stuff culminated into Buffalo police and to some extent FBI interest in their bookshops. We now own Burning Books, not too far away from, actually just about a mile or so away from where the East-West bookshop was. And when we first opened, we had a 2-year FBI investigation into our bookstore, claiming that it was a front to form a terrorist cell. So we had to deal with that for a while. I had a couple of lawsuits against the FBI and other agencies to try to stop that.
And then on the 15th, the event talking about justice for Martin and Geraldine. The 14th, justice for Geraldine and Martin. It will be at Burning Books.
Yep, Burning Books.
Yeah, I think. Yep, James can speak to that.
Yeah, Sunday, this Sunday, the 14th, 1 p.m. at Burning Books. The address is 420 Connecticut Street. Connecticut and 15th Street is the specific intersection it's at.
It's interesting that bookstores that really push progressive kinds of information, often targeted.
In this
By the
days of
system.
time, still
Yeah.
during this time period,
Yeah,
the same thing is happening that happened to you in 1967
Hasn't changed.
and haven't changed. So you did, how many years in jail did you do?
I did 2 years and 19 days.
Oh,
When I first went to jail, I went to Albion, and that's right here in upstate New York. And from there, I was transferred to Bedford Hills.
wow. So you was there, never been arrested before,
Never in my life.
and it's snatched away from your family. Your son is here. He was affected by it as well. Today, still affected by it, and so he's on your side now. And I'm sorry that you had to go through that in that time period. But this is stuff that we don't have in our history books. Well, with Austin and my grandchildren, they don't hear these stories about how valuable it is to read, how valuable it is to see that things can happen, Mr. Anderson, with youth. Even at WFO, when we took kids to Detroit, when they seen the slaves enslaved and all that there and the things, they were hurt by it. Now, I'm hurt by it now that it happened to you. And I'm like, what do you want from this now? Because here we are in 2024, and I know Mr. Austin, the young man that we have on the show, this is forte to go deeper into it, saying, what do you want? Some people might want reparations. We still ain't got the 40 acres and a mule yet, so that's not happening. So what are we going to get from there? And I'm going to slide over to my man because he's waiting over here. You know, you answer me, why is that?
My name is Terrence Pointer. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Thank
you're
you.
welcome.
What do we want?
Go that mic to you.
Talk. There you go.
And don't be afraid to talk to it loud. It's all right to talk loud. You don't have to raise your hand.
The first thing I'll probably say is, we're blessed. We're blessed. The next thing would be is, everybody need to be enlightened to what can happen to you. It can happen to anybody. You don't have to be a person of color. You know, it can happen to anybody. What we want right now is for everybody to be aware. You know what I'm saying? What's going on around you all the time, regardless. You know, if it doesn't affect you at all, you just be aware of what's happening. You see somebody getting harassed by the police, you know, observe it. You know what I'm saying? Because it's good police out there and it's bad police out there. You know what I'm saying? It goes around everywhere. What we want is my mother to be exonerated. Wow, everything. Then you think about compensation. How can you compensate her for that time for her children being in foster care? How can you compensate her for that? You know what I'm saying? You figure it out. How what would you do if you were in a situation and you were, you know, on the inside? What would you do? What would compensate you for being put in foster care away from your mother? My 3 brothers, my 2 brothers, they're passed away now. There were 3 of us. We were put in foster care. How did it affect me? I still love my mother, I always have. You know what I'm saying? It's just
It has an effect, for
long
sure.
as she's all right, I'm all right. You know? And I know how strong she is because she never ever came back and said anything negative about this situation, even though it affected her, you know. She kept it to herself. She never came to her children and was like, la, 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 la. You know, she just kept told us, keep moving on. Keep moving on. You know, keep moving on.
And that's what brings us to the important part of this moment about July 14th. And both James and Leslie, I know the event is not an event of entertainment, it's an event of entertainment, and on things that we listeners and friends that you can tell after listening can help do. And so I'm going to have either James or Leslie talk about what is the ultimate goal we want at this event on the 14th.
Well, I mean, I can't explicitly describe or define what it is that the Pointer family wants, but I think Mr. Terrence really, hit the nail on the head. It's, understanding that this can happen to anyone, but also that a lot of the same things that, cause this to happen are still in place at Burning Books. And why we have our name is that we have a lot of books that have been or are being banned throughout the country. And again, as Ms. Geraldine and Mr. Terrence has said, that a lot of the books that were sold in the bookshops were things you couldn't get really in the public library system that were only available at those spaces, and then those were effectively shut down. So it's to understand the powers that be, those that have control, not only control over who may be innocent, who may be guilty, but also what knowledge, what information can be discussed, what ideas there are, the ability to organize as a community and to resist injustice as well.
How does the community need to take a role in the action that's attempting to vacate the conviction?
Yeah, so I mean, we need to sign a petition, we need to organize, we need to pressure the county DA to right this wrong, but more importantly, we need to educate each other. It's not only the pressure that we're putting on the DA, the exoneration itself, but also the remembrance of that history, that connection of the history to the present. You know, folks may say, well, you know, I wasn't around then, it doesn't impact me, but we have effectively inherited the consequences of that history. And I don't know if Leslie can say anything else.
Leslie, any comments?
Yeah, you know, I would just say that when there's something that's wrong that's done, you know, people should do something about it, even if it's been a half century. It's important to remember it and to continue to resist these things so that they don't hopefully happen again, or you know, similar things aren't happening as easily as they had before. So just to stay vigilant, you know, to keep ourselves prepared for repression from the state or elsewhere, and to not forget about these important things. The reason that, you know, the East West Bookshop was targeted, right, was because it was making a powerful impact on the community, and there were people in power that didn't want that, and so you know, that type of scenario happens over and over again, and it's important that we do what we can to resist it, any opportunities that we have. So, so I think it's a great effort right now to sort of vacate the convictions and to bring back a important memory in our recent history, and a good opportunity to have some people who are around for that to hear from them and learn from them.
Indeed. I want to add something else that Murray was saying when we were out in the lobby and speaking, and he brought up about the intersection of things happening today, how looking back and remembering these points in history, that if we help our young people today to see there's some things they're doing that are exactly the same thing, and you can think about it in a lot of ways. When Murray mentioned, you know, the Buffalo Five, you know, and I can tell you, listening to Leslie James Pickering is another example. And I'm just saying the way that they don't care how they trump. You could be sweeping the porch, and if they want to grab you and trump up something, they can do it. And when you start doing stuff that talks about liberating and advancing people that they feel threatened by, they will come, and all of a sudden you the boogeyman, you the witch, you know. And when people don't know, this is why the history and the linking is so important, because if people don't know what went down and how the system dealt with it, they'll fall into that trap, and we've seen a lot of them get entrapped. And so this is great.
What I want to ask her, I guess, what I'm gonna comment on as a young person, bringing that young perspective. This is crazy. Like, man, I mean, I guess I'm gonna get into the professional language, but this is crazy, man. FBI ain't. I ain't never seen no FBI truck. That's a little terrifying. And so for FBI to be tapping and surveying on something, it shows the power of what was in those books. But my question is this, right? Because I think that Ms. Geraldine is an example of what we need in our community. But as a young person, like I said, that scenario that sounds scary. So oftentimes the hard part is, I always ask, how do we change as a community? But for the people like Ms. Pointer that have made that change, the sad part is oftentimes we don't get living history. we get what's left, we get remnants, we get books, we get secondhand sources. So having you in front of me, Ms. Pointer, what I want to ask you is, despite what you went through, despite how scary it was it worth it to you? Because as a young person who wants to inspire change in my city, young people like myself, we hear about things like the dogs and the fire hose, and we're like, dude, that sounds terrifying. But I bet you there was something, and I'm not betting, but I'm asking, is there something more important than whatever you struggle with in the moment for a greater goal? Was it worth it for you, Ms. Pointer?
Yes, it was worth it when it let the people know what the FBI and the people are doing to the people. Yes, it's worth it. When it takes out the dirty sheet and let them see what's really happening.
So you didn't go to a federal jail, and you said the FBI was investigating. I'm thinking that she should have went to a federal, conviction, not a, state conviction. Am I right or wrong? From the aspect of Jane, right? Right. So,
well, I'll say that. What? Like you said, that idea of uncovering the dirt, of uncovering the truth of what's beneath it. Would you say that the pursuit of truth is worth it, even if you have to necessarily suffer in the short term?
To let the people know what's really going on.
I think we need, and I say all the time in the community, we need more people who have that mindset, who are willing to ask themselves, and we ask you all the time on the show, you guys can attest, what are you willing to do for this change? And I think that a lot of times we get people who are either not sure, or we get young people who aren't even aware of what change requires. And so I just want to say, as a young person, that this story to me serves an example of when we talk about what can I do to contribute to the cause, we have to almost take our sense of self and put it on the backseat, because what you described, Ms. Pointer, was, like I said, looking out for the greater good of your people, regardless of what came to you as a result. And the best way we can prevent more situations like yourself is to all stand up, because our strength is not in the individual, it's in numbers. So I definitely appreciate you sharing that perspective. So for any young people listening, just be aware when we hear people talk about change, or we always think and talk about the city we want to be a part of, it requires work. There may be things that happen, but the only way we prevent people from getting singled out is we all have to stand in solidarity, because if not, they're going to separate, divide, and conquer, and pick us off. And we're going to hope that we got more Miss Pointers, but let's say she wasn't as strong and she just gave up. We need to prevent that. We shouldn't have to make people make that decision of, am I going to suffer on my own for my people, or am I going to give up? We should be, the decision should be, am I going to suffer with my people, or are we not going to progress? So I definitely appreciate you sharing that perspective. Thank you.
And give the location and time about Sunday.
Okay, location for Sunday, July 14th is 420 Connecticut Street, over on the west side. Connecticut and 15th Street is the intersection. That'll be at 1 p.m. We'll be hearing from Miss Pointer, and also we'll be showing a documentary called Frame Up, which more specifically focuses not only on the arrest, but also Martin Sostre's incarceration and his resistance and attempts to maintain his own bodily autonomy against the powers that be in jail.
So Martin passed away. We haven't talked about him. So this is this great man that opened up a bookstore, 2 bookstores, passed away. And so his story has to be told just as well, because I'm looking at your picture, man, and you're a beautiful young sister during that time period. The hair and all that there, and now to see that you're now having the gray, and that just shows that the transition of life. It was just great to tell your story. We need more people to tell the story about what they went through in their lives, and to edge your name in the stone. I believe you're doing that with this piece here. But more of our youth in our community, whether it be at the Meriwether Library downtown, needs to hear your story. And so, because they could be affected just like you were affected, wrongfully convicted plays a major part in our community. We know across the board now we have phones, other means to document, but your documentation then was in a book. And so now we facing things like that now with our legislation of taking phones and things away from folks. So do we go back to reading books? We got kids that go downtown right now to fight. They're not reading books. So how do we get our youth to understand, to read the story again, or to go to places that you already there. Are you still working with the bookstore now at the place on 420 Connecticut Street? I'm giving the place. I think we're going to break right now. I think we're getting ready to go to break. We'll answer that when you come right back.
Great. Who is hiding?
I'm gonna
Let
step
me
out.
open this door.
We're still checking on.
We're still on live,
on live,
and there's only 2 people here, and we're gonna try to fix this air conditioning while you're on the live.
Are you holding up?
So far, so good.
Okay. This won't be the last time. No, you know, I mean, these are two heavy sides of the story. In a real sense, you were incarcerated too. You know? Yeah. They was going for the money. You know, they do a little, that's all they did, a little, you know, but a lot of them, back in the day, look, we're talking about the years where there was poverty pimping going on. Everybody wasn't conscious, you know, and them was some tough years.
I said something a long time. We ain't in the era.
No.
You are live. You are live.
Okay.
It's
You are
on
live.
Facebook.
Yeah.
I said something a long time ago. I was like, my mother, she didn't do it. Can you help us?
See?
You a politician
To a politician.
that lived on the same street where we lived.
And he just looked at me.
We're back live in hey, we're back live. You're listening to Conversations with Jim Anderson. And man, we got a really rich show here. And look, on the Facebook page, and like we've been saying, Justice for Geraldine and Martin is rich in a lot of ways, things that not only the history, but its revelation in relations to today, and the fact that some things that still need to be done that is underway but has not been completed yet. In community, there may be a need for us to engage. They're trying to get the conviction against Geraldine vacated, and that means a petition. So, you know, hearing the story, I hope will help you to be open to whenever you get confronted to help by signing the petition, that you'll do so. We're building community back. You know, we know the undermining that we've gone through. You can look at the big holes in our community. And by the way, let me just tell you, back in those days, we didn't have no open blank spaces on our street. Everywhere in the community had occupied home. I mean, there wasn't no buildings that have been knocked down. And there were a lot of black businesses, a lot of them. And I'm just telling you, the east side was a beautiful side, just as beautiful as the Delaware side. And anyway, this is what I'm saying about the connection of history. And I'm glad we got the generations in here, because it, you know, look, as we look back, we need to prepare to look forward, and kind of with jet speed, because they're thinking on things that we thought about and came to a point on that no, they said put a comma, because they got more to say on it. And it's just a question.
As a son, this is my mom right here. This is Big Mom. I love my mom with all my heart. I already know. We know how it is. And I want to ask you a question. When you were, like you explained in the break, when you're going around saying like, my mom didn't do it, mom is innocent, were you getting the support that you felt that she deserved for doing what she did as such a selfless action? And even if whether she did or didn't, how do you, when your mom is suffering for something that you know she hasn't done, how do you leave from that with the perspective of optimism as for the future instead of anger and resentment? Because the common thing I see in our generation is, look, if I see one more killing man, these police just don't care. And so how do we get young people, especially young black men, to look at these scenarios and instead of just getting cynical and angry, become and stay optimistic?
Well, it seems like there's no place that we can go and speak as one. That's the first thing we need to do. We need to speak as one. We need to contribute to us. To us. There needed to be a place, a foundation, someone. I said this a long time ago. I said, I wish there was a place that we could find, and I don't know what we can call it, but for now, let's just call it a bucket. Okay? There's a bucket, and every African American family in Buffalo has contributed to the bucket. What would happen? Let's find that bucket. Let's get together, because there's other ethnic groups out here who are in the bucket. They're using their money. We're not using our money because we don't have a bucket. I don't have a problem with contributing. I'd be glad to put money in the bucket every month. If it has to be weekly, it don't have to be a lot because it's a lot of us. Put $5 a week in that bucket from everybody. It's African American in Buffalo. Buy that lot. Buy that building. Help these young people see what's going on. Let them participate. They're gonna see the bucket. They're gonna see the progress from the bucket. Until then, we can talk and talk and talk. We don't have anywhere we can go where that bucket is at.
Do you see, and we talk about this about the community. I think back in the day that was the church. And then as we kind of separated and dispersed from the church, we didn't have a place for people like us to all hear a message. That's why when I say all the time, when the Pope, when they say don't eat fish on Friday, that's why the lines of the church are super long Catholic church, because they move as a collective, even when they don't move as a collective. But to that point, what that requires is buy-in. Do you see, even going back to the other question, did you see support, enough collective support from our people around an instance like this? Because if they're not going to support someone like Miss Pointer, who's doing something selfless, how are we going to ever get us to give $5 a month? And so did you see that support, or is that something that we still need to work our way towards?
Well, seeing the support, I was young, so I had questions that some people wouldn't even answer, and we wouldn't even acknowledge me. I asked a politician one day who lived on my street, can he help me? As a child, I didn't know where to go. Support, there was no support. There was support on their side of the fence, put them in foster care.
That's what happened.
And that's what happened. Okay, support, no, there was no support on my side of the fence. Who can I go to at that particular time and who had influence to help me, to help us as a whole? No, we were just me, my brother, my two brothers who passed away now. We were put in foster care. Then for things to come out later on, animosities? No, I don't have any animosities. I love my mother. She raised us well, When she was away, we still had that same connection. So that's our mother. You love your mother no matter what. That's these young kids today. They just respect their mother, their father, their grandmother, their neighbor. They never will have a best friend. Me and my best friend, we 60-something years old. We still best friends to this day. We joined the military together. Thank God we came home. All right. We still best friends to this day. I talk about him because I don't like him. That's best friends, That's best friends.
What branch you serve in?
Army.
All right.
There's more of us than y'all.
I'm a little hoorah.
I know. I said it's more of us than y'all.
Okay. All right. We got a caller on the phone. Caller, you're welcome. You're on. Caller, oh, wait a minute. Hold on. Let me push it in. I'm sorry. There you go. You're good.
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear about the event coming up and looking forward to supporting it and supporting the sister. My question was, I thought Martin's case had been overturned, and I wondered if that's the case, and what I heard wasn't also. And if Martin was released years ago,
okay, we got an answer for you right now.
So Martin was granted clemency in 1976, but Martin and Miss Geraldine's records have not been exonerated, so their records are still technically on the books, so to speak, through Erie County, through the district attorney's office. So it's to, as we discussed earlier, to right this long-standing injustice, but also to bring to light to this history to generations of folks who may not be aware of it, who may not realize that this happened, and as we said, that it's history repeating itself, but in a modern context.
The other thing is related to the wrongly convicted young brothers, John Walker and the other brothers who were wrongly convicted. And that happened years later, but I just really was curious about Martin.
and we see what the absence of having a legal apparatus in our community that could be available in moments like this more readily so than they are, because many of them have to make a living. That's how they make their living. And what people don't understand, no matter what, sometimes they have incidences and they think they they'd say, I want to sue, I'm going to sue, yeah, you could sue, but you got to have some retaining money up front to acquire an attorney that will take up your case, and not take up your case, and if they win, they get paid. No, the big factor towards winning is in the research. And it can't, people don't understand. It take hours to do the research. And so, that point goes into what you, Austin, was just having a discussion on, that the absence of help when we've been in the hole or the tough part of the road. The absence of help works two ways. Yes, whoa, sorry, it's painful that nobody stepped forward, but what it also is a moment of enlightenment for the one who is in the hole and able to get out and maintain, to be what many who have had cancer say, they are a survivor, to be a survivor of the system. And in that moment, seeing the things that are needed by anybody who should have to go by any of those roads. That's where we haven't done. We got to break the habit in our community that fails to educate people truly about what we're up against. And when you get in those kinds of pits, what kind of forbearance you need to have, because the system won't correct it. And that forbearance has to be with the whole of the community, so that if any one of us get in there, and we need to be available when we pull and get somebody out to really help where they've been exonerated, vacate, given clemency or whatever, and where it's been violated against them, do what we can to get all of that vacated. It's really an opportunity to create young attorneys. If you want to learn law, you can learn law by helping with some of the issues that come up in our community, and learning your way as you get in position to go into law school, but learning the basic community. We got to protect ourselves. We gotta do that.
When brother John Walker, it took a while for him to get good representation. Then there was also political things that helped move this case. I was wondering if that same kind of forces can be brought to bear to help clear up the civil rights. Just
Yeah.
I look forward to the event.
He kept telling it on the mountain, and that's the same thing here. When something happened, if you've been wounded by the system, keep telling it until we hear it. Because people have dulled their ears to hearing, except when it's dim, then they want the world to stop and everybody come where they at. But we need to be, before it's any of us, when we hear something, go see how we can help. Go see if it's going down rightfully.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Another, and I keep going. I'm fascinated by it, because I just think that there has to be a mental shift in our community. I always go back to, you said it was worth it. Was it worth it in retrospect, looking back, or was it even worth it in the moment? And if it was worth it in the moment, what were you telling yourself when your future was uncertain to get you through that tough time and still, again, believe that it was worth it? What were some of those things that you would tell yourself? What was the mindset that you were in, that if in the moment it was worth it, what were you telling yourself to get through?
Matter of fact, this was before I even came home and I was still in jail. I remember this old woman telling me, because I was really depressed and everything while I was there because of what had happened. She told me, you do this time, don't let this time do you.
Mm-hmm. How old were you when they first arrested you?
I have to stop and think.
17. And you're coming back into the community. How did the community receive you? Coming back, what was the community ready? People get stigmatized. Ooh, and or
That's just
were
how it was.
were they?
That's just how it was. And you know what? When this happened, my name was Geraldine Robinson.
Yes.
I use Geraldine Pointer now because I didn't want to have my children going through any
Yeah, I hear you.
any unnecessary things as far as them getting their feelings hurt because of me going to jail. Because back in the day, if you went to jail, they figured you did something wrong. They're going to terrorize or victimize you and your children.
You know something? You just made another huge point that I hope listeners take to heart in here. That not only the person, but imagine the children,
Exactly.
having to confront that. And you know how kids can be cruel, and you know how insensitive some adults can be towards young people when they think they can get away with it. And so, and we already know there's stigma associated with anyone that have to do any kind of time.
You're
People
jailbird,
start,
you're
like
jailbird.
you, and we supposed to be in that kind of city where there are a lot of people that, follow some kind of faith that talk about being forgiving, and being forgiving means let it go. Let it go. Now that time they see you, they got to think about it, and it wouldn't be bad if they think about it in their embrace. However, we're going to a call. Caller, you on the air. Welcome.
Yes, Mr. Anderson.
Hey, Dr. Dawn, welcome.
Yes, I have a couple questions I wanted to ask your guest.
Please.
I'm a senior citizen, so I remember those days, and I remember the store, and there were two groups who were active back there in that time. One was the Black Muslims.
Yes.
The other one was the Black Panthers. They were there. I was very young, so I don't know all the details, but I do remember the bookstore. But my question is, have your guest, because I'm a journalist, I have not seen anything in the Criterion or the Challenger about your event. Now, maybe they did send something, and I missed it.
Mm-hmm.
So, because everybody may not be listening to the radio. So that's what I wanted to ask. I was invited to speak at the event. However, because of health issues, I cannot make it. You know, Mr. Anderson, I get about 8 invitations to speak every week.
Wow. Wow.
I can't go to all of them because of my age and because of my health conditions.
I hear you.
But I still write. So I just wanted to ask that question. Have they done anything with we have only 2 Black newspapers, so I'll hang up and listen to their answer. Thank you.
So, Dr. Eva Doyle writes for the Challenger newspaper, has a column, Eye on History, former teacher in the Buffalo Public School on African American history, and but she still writes for the Challenger, and she wanted to know, have you done anything with the Challenger or the Criterion?
No,
She
I
writes
haven't.
for the Criterion.
No,
I'm
I
sorry.
haven't.
You haven't?
No.
I've the press release that we typed up, I did send to the Challenger at the end of June. I haven't heard from Miss Alnisa Banks about it. I don't have a contact personally with the Criterion. I did reach out to Miss Doyle a couple days ago, Saturday morning, and I did email. Miss Doyle. Yeah, I know. I didn't email Miss Doyle the press release, but as far as any other contacts with the Criterion, I personally don't have any, and I apologize for. It wasn't an intent to, be dismissive or to not.
Not a problem. I'll get her contact for you to both you and her. and going forward, there she can give her a call. And she may have something she can do. One of the things, though, you know, in this moment points out something. When you do get sometimes pinched by the system, there's a tendency to shrink back, you know, because your mindset could go to thinking, well, I'm kind of not. You can almost think you're not good enough for the community that you come from yourself. And part of that is because of the overshadow that's already in the community. And so, I mean, this discussion opens up a lot because, look, so you wasn't in touch with the newspaper. Nowadays, people looking to jump in the newspaper. The fact that you've been somewhat quiet, just trying to live your life and ensure your children have no bad stuff thrown into their ears and in front of them, you've been doing that. And, you know, but it's time, you know, to get the fullness of the light. Your son here is showing his radiance, even with the impacts that life will have on all of us, no matter what road we're on. I think this is the moment for you to step into the history that you have to serve up to the community, because it's so important. You have people who are near your age that still don't know what's going on. And it also points out another factor, the presence of young, conscious people in any kind of movement. 17 years old. 17 years old at that time. Look, since then, at all the battles and what has happened, it's been young people between the age of 17 going into their younger 20s that have had the heavy presence. And today, it has been that range that is adamant about what they want and prepared to offer resistance to those who are trying to make them think, no, we already got all that. They ain't going for it. So we just have to realize that, yeah, there's more to be done, and there's stuff we don't see that they certainly see. And man, look, I'm loving this conversation because there's so much in it. And I could talk a while. Now, I should have told you, you don't have to raise your hand to grab the mic. You can just grab the mic in here. And
what I find too is what I'm like struggling to understand is like, all right, if I look at someone back in history that we're supposed to revere, like a Rosa Parks, right? Let's think about it. If I was Austin Parks, I'm Austin Martin. If I was Austin Parks, I probably would be like, woo, like put it on the forefront. And when we think about that in our community, the Black community, like we put those people on a pedestal. But then you have other people like Ms. Pointer who then have to come back to the community and make changes to not stand out. I guess the question becomes, if as a people, we know the people that are putting us in prison aren't good judges, why are we then trusting their judgment in our communities? If you're guilty in front of them, that don't mean you're guilty in front of me, because even to the point of how those laws got written, those are people just like I'm people. So what, you more qualified to judge than me? Even if you'd have seen all the history, that's not right now, that's not today, that's not the context, that's not the community that they may have been involved in. And so my question becomes, how is we as a community, can we respect legality, right? Respect that we're trying to do what's right as a society and as a nation, but also make judgments for ourselves. Because to me, there's no reason why you shouldn't be like, man, I'm a point, and you shouldn't be walking around getting honor and reverence in our community because you were a scapegoat for us, for that community to continue to have that material and that information. So can you maybe give your perspective on that? How do we respect legality but make our own judgments as Black people?
It was something that I said to my mother. I was like, what if every time you arrested someone, you had to take a lie detector test? What would happen? So if I was a police officer and every time I arrest someone, I would have to take a lie detector test, what would that make me do? It would make me think first. So when you become a police officer, that's one of the criteria you have to do now. You got to sign a statement saying, I'm going to take a lie detector test. Every time I arrest someone, that would change the community right then and there. Because he shops where the lawyers live at. He shops where the judges live at. He go to church where the judges live at. His kids go to the same school the judges live at. They all live in the same community, and they're judging me. So let's put something there that can level the bar a little bit. Take that test, see what happens. So a lot of them out there who did wrong. They did wrong to my mother. What if they took a lie to take the test back then? Change it. Change it from the inside. They don't fear anything. They don't have to be accountable. They can do anything and whatever. Take that test, see how many of them did shit. Excuse my language. How many of them did stuff? I apologize.
No, you're good. And even to that point, I think that when we look at, okay, if that's the change we want to make, why aren't they afraid? They're afraid because there's no reaction, no response when I do wrong. And so the question has to become, in order to get that change, what are we as a people willing to do? And I think that it's through saying what is important to us, what is the truth, what is really going on, and how can we make sure that the truth happens? Because there are some people who look like me who may need to be behind bars. But we need to have a voice that conversation just like anybody else, because you don't understand what maybe happened in their youth and in their upbringing that caused them to make that choice now as an adult or as a young or as an early 20s and later in their life. So to that point, I just think we need to start to open our mindset, even as a community, to say that, like for the phrase that I said, if we don't agree with their rulings in the courtroom, why would we then use that as a judgment for our communities? Because it doesn't make sense. You haven't lived here, like you said, and like to your point, if we want to get lie detectors, if we want to get police to be held accountable, we as a community have to, for the time being, be the result, be the bad option if you don't follow the rules. Because if we're not making an outrage, why would they listen? So it's definitely something that this is eye-opening to me, because I wasn't even aware of how big this was in Buffalo. Now I'm gonna be talking to my friends like, no, we had I'm gonna say we had black empowerment here to the fullest. You ain't heard it? I'm gonna say it like I knew it now, but you ain't heard this? You ain't heard this, Geraldine? Oh, you ain't tapped in, man. And to that point, it's just we need to change our conversations to say that this isn't something that's in the history books. We have living history today, so we gotta pay proper reverence. I go by and appreciate it.
East Ferry in Michigan. When I go by there, I see all the mural, everybody on there. I'm saying, my mother needed to be on there, And I get emotional when I ride by there, because it's a politician on there who I said that statement to, and I look at him when I ride by like, you didn't believe me. They didn't believe my mother. And finally it came out because an interviewer said that it never happened like that. It didn't happen. You know what I'm saying? So I'm there. That's where I'm at right now.
All right. Well, we got about a couple minutes, so I want to give y'all an opportunity to have your last words. We got 1 minute left, as a matter of fact.
Where's that bucket we put that money in?
We're gonna take an offering up. Y'all didn't know that. So last words and the event as well.
I just want to say it's been a tremendous privilege being able to assist with this event, and the most meaningful thing to me is that just getting to know Miss Geraldine, Mr. Terrence, and the Pointer family. And I feel like they've adopted me as one of their own, and this is just the beginning of something bigger, I feel like. So let's keep building community. And as Miss Geraldine would say, even though the event Sunday would, it's just one event, it's not at the end going to be a goodbye, it's a see you later. So this Sunday, July 14th, 1 p.m., 420 Connecticut Street, Burning Books. Hope to see you all there.
Yes.
Thank you.
I want to thank everybody that made this possible for me to come here to speak. And I want to let everybody know I feel like I haven't been forgotten.
All right. You haven't. And not only that, we're going to have you back again, because I know you got more to say, and we'd like to have you at a mic to let it come out. And thank you for coming. Thank you both for coming. And thank you, James and Leslie. We out of here. Thank you, engineer. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah.